My wife cheated on me with my best friend, then manipulated me into signing away $200, $0 in our divorce, only to find out she secretly bought a second house with the affair partner and is now suing me for half, claiming I tricked her into giving up everything. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am. My wife, Emily, always seemed like the perfect girl, smart, beautiful, funny, a little bitchy sometimes, but in that charming way. We'd been married for about 8 years, and honestly, I thought we had a solid life together. We had a nice house, good jobs, 2 kids, and everything looked perfect from the outside. But then I started noticing small things, little changes in her behavior that didn't add up. It started with her phone. She'd always been pretty protective of her texts, but suddenly she'd be secretive, hiding her screen when I came into the room or taking calls in the bathroom. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she was just stressed or talking to a friend. Then I noticed she was spending more time on social media, liking and commenting on some guy's posts, some guy I didn't recognize. I asked her about it and she brushed me off, saying it was just a coworker or some internet friend. But I had a gut feeling that something was off. Then came the nights when she'd stay out later than usual, claiming she was working late or meeting a client. She'd come home with a new perfume or a different attitude, more confident, more distant. I'd catch her sneaking phone calls or texting late at night, and her excuses got more elaborate. "You're just paranoid," she'd say. "You trust me, right? I don't know what you're accusing me of." But I could see the flicker of guilt in her eyes, and I knew she was hiding something. One day, I decided to go through her phone. I know, people say that's invasive, but I was desperate. I wasn't snooping just to invade her privacy. I was trying to find out what was going on because I couldn't ignore the feeling that I was being played. And what I found was worse than I expected. There were messages, flirty, suggestive texts, between her and that guy she'd been liking on social media. They were talking about meeting up, about sex, about how much they wanted each other. It hit me like a punch in the stomach. My wife, my partner, was cheating on me with my best friend, Jake. I couldn't believe it. My mind was spinning. Jake was a guy I'd known since college, someone I trusted with my life. And now I found out he'd been screwing my wife behind my back for months. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and totally lost. I sat there staring at the screen, trying to process what I'd just seen, feeling like my entire world was crashing down. How could she do this? How could she lie to my face, act like everything was fine, and then turn around and sleep with someone I trusted? That night I confronted her. I didn't even wait for her to come home. I called her at work and told her I knew everything. Her reaction? Oh, she played the victim right away. Said I was paranoid, that I was crazy, that I was accusing her without proof. She denied everything at first, then started spinning some bullshit about how I was controlling and insecure. She said it was just sex, that it didn't mean anything, that I was overreacting. She even had the nerve to tell me I was lucky she was still with me, that she could have run off with Jake and left me with nothing. That was the moment I realized she was manipulative as hell. The thing is, I felt a mix of rage and heartbreak. I'd been with her for so long, built a life together, and now I found out she'd been lying, cheating, and scheming behind my back. I could see the truth in her eyes. She didn't care about me, only about getting what she wanted. It hurt more than I can put into words. I felt like I'd been blind all those years. How could I have missed the signs? How could I have trusted her so blindly? It was like my entire reality was shattered in that moment. And yet, I knew I couldn't just sit there and do nothing. I had to figure out what to do next, how to handle this mess. I felt a burning need for justice, for some kind of revenge, because I wasn't going to let her walk all over me. My mind was racing with plans, with questions. How much money did she take? Was she planning to leave? Did she even care about the damage she'd done? All I knew was that I had to get to the bottom of this and come out on top, no matter what. After I confronted her that night, everything changed. Emily's face was a mask of calm, but I could see the flicker of panic in her eyes. She tried to deny everything, but I had the evidence, and she knew it. She looked at me with that fake innocent look, the one she'd perfected over years, like I was the one overreacting, like I was the crazy one. She kept saying, "You're making a big deal out of nothing," but I wasn't buying it anymore. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me like she always did. The next few days were a roller coaster. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My mind kept replaying everything, her lies, her sneaking around behind my back, the way she had played me for a fool. I started digging into her phone, her emails, her bank accounts. I wanted to know everything. Turns out she'd been planning this for months. She'd secretly bought a second house with Jake, somewhere out in the suburbs without telling me. That was the real reason she'd been so distant, so secretive. She'd been planning her escape and I was just a pawn in her game. I found the property records and saw her name on the deed. The house was fully paid for, and she'd moved some money into an account I didn't even know existed. She'd been hiding all of it. I also discovered she'd been funneling money into Jake's account, probably for the affair, for the rent, the side life she'd been living. It made me sick to think about how she'd been lying, cheating, and spending my money behind my back. All those years I worked my ass off to give her a good life, and she was sneaking around with my best friend, spending my money like it was nothing. I decided I had to act fast. I couldn't let her keep pulling the strings. I contacted a lawyer, someone who specialized in divorce and asset division. I wanted to protect what was mine. I also started gathering evidence, texts, emails, bank statements to use in court. I wasn't planning to just walk away with nothing. I wanted justice and I wanted her to pay for what she'd done. I could feel my anger growing, but I knew I had to stay calm, calculated. This was going to be a fight, and I wasn't going down without a fight. Meanwhile, Emily kept up her act. She told everyone I was unstable, that I was overreacting, that I was jealous and insecure. She spun stories about how she was the victim, how I didn't trust her. She even started telling her friends that I was trying to control her, that I was abusive, completely fabricating things. She knew exactly how to manipulate people, how to make herself look innocent, but I wasn't buying it. I had the evidence and I knew her game. One night she came home late from a business trip, smelling of perfume that definitely wasn't mine. I confronted her again and she threw a tantrum, yelling about how I was ruining her life, how she deserved happiness too. That's when I realized she'd already made her decision. She was leaving and she didn't care what I thought. She was done pretending. I felt a deep sense of betrayal, not just because of the affair, but because she'd stolen from me, lied to me, and manipulated everyone around her. It was like she was a different person altogether. I'd been blind for so long, trusting her blindly. Now I saw her for what she really was, an unfaithful, selfish, manipulative woman who'd lied her way into my life and was now trying to take everything I had left. I knew I had to make a move, and fast. The stakes were high, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. The days following her business trip were a whirlwind. I spent every free moment with my lawyer trying to piece together the full extent of her deception. It turned out she'd been planning this for a long time. Not just the affair, but the financial side of it too. She moved money into that second house, hidden assets, and even tried to set me up to look like the bad guy. I found out she'd been secretly transferring funds out of our joint account into her personal account. Money I thought was for bills, the mortgage, the kids' education. Turns out she'd been funneling it all into her secret stash, which she kept hidden from me. I also got access to her emails and messages. There were conversations that made it clear she'd been telling Jake she hated her marriage, that she was stuck with me, and that she was planning to leave as soon as she could. She painted herself as the victim, claiming I was controlling and abusive. That was her go-to story whenever she got caught: deflect, lie, manipulate. Honestly, it made me sick to see how she'd lied so effortlessly, how she'd spun her web of deceit. She even tried to turn the kids against me, saying I didn't love them, that I was a terrible father. That's how low she'd go. Meanwhile, I was feeling more betrayed than ever. I'd given her everything, my trust, my savings, my loyalty, and she'd repaid me with lies and betrayal. The worst part, I still loved her. Despite everything, part of me wanted to believe she'd come clean, that maybe we could fix this. But deep down, I knew it was over. The trust was broken beyond repair. I decided to take control of the situation. I filed for divorce. I also filed a motion to freeze her assets, especially that second house and the money she'd hidden. I knew she'd try to spin this as me tricking her or trapping her into giving up her rights, but I had the evidence to prove she'd been planning this for months. I wanted to make sure I got my fair share, especially considering how much she'd stolen from me emotionally and financially. She caught wind of my plans, and that's when things got ugly. She started threatening me, saying I'd never get a penny, that I was just trying to ruin her life. She claimed I was abusive, controlling, that I'd manipulated her into signing away our assets during the divorce, just to make herself look innocent. But I had the receipts, the bank statements, the emails. I knew her game. One day, she even went as far as to sue me for half of everything, claiming I tricked her into signing the divorce papers and giving up her rights. She said I'd used my power over her, that I'd manipulated her into giving me the house, the savings, everything. I couldn't believe her audacity. She was out here trying to turn the tables, trying to make herself look like the victim again. The truth was, she'd been lying from the start, and now she was desperate. To cover her tracks, as I sat there going over her lawsuit, I realized how much she'd underestimated me. I had all the proof I needed. I knew her game, her manipulative ways. I was determined to fight back, not just for my money, but for my dignity. I wasn't going to let her walk away with a penny more than what was fair, especially after all she'd done. I was angry, hurt, but also resolved. I'd come too far to let her take everything without a fight. This was about justice, even if it meant dragging her through the mud a little. I knew she'd try to spin it, but I had the truth on my side. And that's where I stand now, fighting for what's rightfully mine, watching her try to manipulate her way out of this mess and trying to pick up the pieces of a life I thought I knew. I can't say I'm hopeful about fixing things with her anymore. Honestly, I'm just tired of the lies, the betrayal, the constant game she's playing. But I won't back down. Not now. By this point, everything had escalated beyond what I ever thought I'd face. The divorce proceedings were in full swing, and Emily was pulling out all the stops to paint herself as the victim. She hired her own lawyer, of course, and started throwing around accusations that I'd been emotionally abusive, that I'd manipulated her into signing the divorce papers, and that I'd tricked her into giving up her rights to the assets. The audacity. She kept claiming I made her feel trapped and helpless, as if I'd somehow forced her to cheat, steal, and lie her way out of our marriage. What really got me was her attempt to turn the narrative around, to make it seem like she was the one suffering. She'd call me controlling and abusive, but all I'd ever done was try to hold our family together. Meanwhile, she was out here buying a second house with Jake, planning her escape and lying to everyone. I had the evidence, screenshots, bank statements, witness testimonies, and I made sure the court knew about her secret property and her hidden funds. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. She started sending me nasty messages, accusing me of trying to trap her, of controlling her every move, and even claiming I'd manipulated her into signing the divorce papers. She said I'd tricked her into giving up her rights to the house and the savings. That part really made me laugh. She thought I'd be stupid enough to fall for her lies. I had everything documented. Her emails, her texts, her financial transfers. I knew her game, and I was ready to fight for what was mine. One day, she filed a lawsuit claiming I had tricked her into signing away her rights. She argued that I'd used my power over her, that I'd coerced her into signing documents she didn't understand. The court documents were full of lies, but I had witnesses, people who knew how she'd been planning her escape for months. I also had her own words, her own emails, where she talked about how she wanted to leave and start fresh with Jake. It was clear she'd been planning this for a long time, and she was just trying to cover her tracks now. The thing is, I wasn't just fighting for my money. I was fighting to protect my reputation and my dignity. This woman had lied, manipulated, and betrayed me at every turn, and I refused to let her spin it into some kind of victim story. I hired a private investigator to dig into her finances and her activities, and what I found was shocking. She'd been secretly buying that second house, funneling money into Jake's account, and even trying to hide assets during the divorce process. I had everything I needed to prove her guilt. Meanwhile, Emily kept up her act, acting innocent and helpless in front of her friends and family. She'd cry, play the victim, and accuse me of being the bad guy, but I knew better. I'd seen her true colors. She was a selfish, manipulative bitch who'd do anything to get what she wanted, money, freedom, a new life with Jake. I was furious, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew I had to stay strong, stay calm, and keep fighting to get what was fair. Her latest move was threatening to sue me for half of everything, claiming I'd tricked her into giving up her rights and that I'd manipulated her into signing the divorce papers. She said I'd used my power over her, but I had all the proof that she'd been planning this for months. I knew her tricks, her lies, and I was prepared to expose her completely. I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting to clear my name and hold her accountable for all the damage she'd caused. I've reached a point where I don't even recognize her anymore. The woman I married, the woman I trusted, is gone, replaced by someone who's willing to lie, cheat, and manipulate her way through life. It hurts, but I also feel a strange sense of liberation, like I'm finally waking up from a nightmare. I've learned a lot through this whole mess. Trust is fragile, and you can't ignore the signs when someone shows you who they really are. I'm still fighting, still trying to get justice, and honestly, I don't know how this will all end. But I do know one thing: I will not let her destroy me or take my life without a fight. The court hearings have been a nightmare, honestly. Emily's lawyer kept trying to spin her lies, claiming I manipulated her into signing papers she didn't understand, that I trapped her into giving up her rights, and that I was the controlling one all along. She played the victim well, crying fake tears, acting helpless, and insisting she had no idea about the second house or the money she'd hidden. But I had the evidence, texts, emails, bank statements, that painted a completely different picture. One of the most shocking moments was when she testified, trying to claim I'd forced her into signing the divorce papers under duress. She said I'd threatened her and made her feel helpless, which was a blatant lie. I sat there, listening to her spin that web of deception, feeling a mix of rage and frustration. I had every piece of proof to refute her claims, and I made sure the court saw it all. I brought in a witness, her best friend, who testified that Emily had confided in her about her plans to leave me, buy that second house, and start fresh with Jake. Meanwhile, I stayed quiet, letting the evidence speak for itself. I knew if I lost my temper or tried to argue emotionally, it would only hurt my case. So I kept my composure, even when she tried to paint me as a monster. I knew the truth, and I knew I had the upper hand. I also discovered that she'd been secretly transferring money into Jake's account right up until the divorce proceedings started. It was clear as day she'd been planning this entire betrayal for months, and I was just the last piece of the puzzle she needed to set her plan in motion. The real shocker came when she admitted under oath that she'd bought the second house with Jake. She said she needed a place to start over, that she was unhappy and felt trapped, and that she'd been planning her escape for a long time. Seeing her admit it in court was like a punch to the gut. I felt a strange mixture of anger and sadness. All those years I worked so hard, building a life, supporting her dreams, and she was secretly planning to leave, using my money, my trust, and my love. Her claims of being trapped and innocent were so transparent. I knew she was trying to manipulate the court, but I also knew her game. She thought she could get away with everything, that she could lie her way out of it. But I had the proof, and I was ready to fight for my rights. I'd also hired a forensic accountant to trace her financial activities, and what they uncovered was staggering. She'd been funneling thousands of dollars into Jake's account, buying that second house, and secretly hiding assets from the divorce settlement. The judge listened carefully, and I could see the wheels turning. I knew I had a strong case. My lawyer told me after the hearing that I was in a good position to win, especially with the evidence of her duplicity. But the emotional toll was heavy. I felt drained, betrayed, and furious. How could she do this to me? How could she lie so convincingly? I kept asking myself if I could ever trust her again, or if I even wanted to. In the meantime, Emily tried to spin her narrative into one of victimhood. She's out there claiming I was abusive and controlling, trying to turn her friends and family against me. But I knew better. I knew her tricks. I knew she was desperate, trying to save face, trying to keep her new life with Jake afloat. I refused to be manipulated anymore. I had all the proof I needed, and I was ready to fight to the bitter end to make sure she didn't walk away with everything, especially Not the money she'd stolen from me or the house she'd bought behind my back. Honestly, I don't even recognize her anymore. The woman I loved, the woman I married, she's gone, replaced by someone cold, calculating, and completely selfish. I'm still trying to process everything that's happened, still trying to figure out how I got here. But one thing's clear, I won't let her destroy me. I'll fight for what's rightfully mine, even if it costs me everything. Because at the end of the day, I want some justice, and I'm not backing down until I get it. The final hearing was the culmination of everything. All the evidence I'd gathered, the lies Emily had spun, the assets hidden away, it all came crashing down on her. When her lawyer tried to argue that I had manipulated her into signing away her rights, the judge wasn't buying it. My lawyer presented the emails, the bank statements, the witness testimonies, everything that proved Emily had been planning her escape for months, secretly buying that second house, funneling money into Jake's account, and trying to hide her assets from the court. Watching her sit there, trying to maintain her composure, I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and emptiness. I knew I had won the case, that I'd gotten what I deserved after all the lies and betrayal. The judge ruled in my favor, awarding me the house, the savings, and most importantly, holding Emily accountable for her deception. She was ordered to pay back a significant portion of the money she'd stolen, and the court declared her second house as part of the marital property to be divided fairly. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Emily's true colors were finally exposed for everyone to see. She tried to spin her story one last time, claiming I manipulated her into giving up her rights, that I'd tricked her into signing documents, but her words rang hollow. I had the evidence, and I made sure the court knew it. She was furious, but there was nothing she could do. Her game was up. For me, the emotional weight lifted in some ways, but it was replaced by a deep sense of loss. I'd lost the woman I thought I knew, the woman I loved. I'd given her everything, my trust, my money, my future, and she'd thrown it all away for Jake and a second house. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and exhausted. But I also felt relief. Relief that the truth was out, that I could finally start to rebuild my life without her constant lies hanging over me. Now, I focus on moving forward. The divorce is finalized, and I'm working to restore my sense of stability. The kids are with me most of the time, and I'm trying to be the best father I can be despite everything. I've also learned a lot from this experience. Trust is fragile, and sometimes you have to see the signs before it's too late. I'll never forget what she did, but I refuse to let it define me. This chapter is over, and I'm finally ready to start fresh. Looking back, I realize how much I've grown. I see her for what she truly was: selfish, manipulative, and incapable of genuine love. I hope anyone reading this who might be in a similar situation learns to trust their instincts and not ignore the warning signs. Sometimes, the biggest betrayals come from those closest to us, and they can leave scars that take years to heal. But you can survive. You can come out stronger. And most importantly, you can seek justice, even if it takes every ounce of strength you have.